today. Of course, you can see we have a special guest here, Mr. Almond. He's a barrister in Hong Kong and also the chairman of a political party called Civic Party. So thank you and welcome to the show, Alan.
Hello.
So like I said, today we're going to talk about the legal perspective of the national security law. We have talked about how it is such a controversial thing in Hong Kong. A lot of people, have this, are very repulsive to this law. But let's talk about the legal elements of this. For example, why don't you tell us exactly why is this so controversial in Hong Kong?
Well, this is the first ever piece of legislation that the National People's Congress Standing Committee made for Hong Kong. And the way that it had been made suggested to you, of course, that the whole process was not the usual process of three reading in our legislature. Without all the safeguards built into the legislative process that we are familiar with, like there would be ample time for consultation among stakeholders, yes, and stakeholders as well, right? And it will, in the course of deliberation, there will be media scrutiny, there will be public debates, and the relevant policy secretaries would come to the Legislative Council to answer questions from legislators. You may recall that about 19 years ago, when Tung Chee-hwa, our first chief executive, together with the then Secretary for Justice, Regina Yip, they were pushing the Article 23 national security law in 2002 to 2003. And at the end of the day, in July 2003, Tung Chee-hwa decided to shelve the bill. And that is a perfect example of how the legislative process can protect freedoms, human rights, and make sure that the people's voices were heard. But on this occasion, it was done totally in a black box in Beijing.
And quick. It's very quick. Like you said, no consultation, whatever.
Yeah, no, not at all. Even the chief executive had been kept in the dark, right? From her behavior at the material time, that is June, July this year. Obviously, she wasn't kept in the loop, so to speak, even the chief executive.
As in the details or as in the implementation of the law itself?
Well, don't ask me, ask Carrie Lam, right? But from what she came out and told the people, certainly she had not been consulted on the chapters and verses and the drafting of that piece of legislation. It was all done by the National People's Congress Standing Committee and imposed on us. So that makes it very, very, very controversial from the word go.
Right. So just to explain to some of the audience who don't really have an idea of what the National People's Congress is, it's pretty much, it's a Chinese parliament, and a lot of Western critics would say it's a rubber stamp pretty much, who would always approve all the legislature policies or whatever laws or new rules the Communist Party trying to impose in the country. And so that is why, like you said, it's very controversial because there's pretty much no chance for anyone to say no during that process. And so going to the local elements here, we have this so-called designated judges for the national security. Well, we don't have a separate court for that, but we do have designated judges for those national security law related cases.
Yes.
How does it work, and why do those kind of case?
Well, Almond, you must know that the basic law provided very clearly that there was only one source of law in Hong Kong, namely the statutes and also the judicial precedents constituted by judgments of the court before 1997. Now, this source of law is supposed to be the only source of law in Hong Kong, right? Statutes plus judgments. But the national security law actually introduced into Hong Kong a separate system of law or source of law, which is self-contained and insulated from the original source and system of law. Why do I say that? In the police department, there is set up a special national security bureau headed by a designated deputy commissioner appointed by the chief executive. And then in the Department of Justice, which is responsible for decisions to be made on how to prefer charges, to draft indictments, and to prosecute cases in court. Now, they set up within the Department of Justice a special department, a department within the department. Yeah. And this special department is called the National Security Department or section. And the section head is again appointed by the chief executive, right? Although you must know that, albeit that this head or the section is appointed by the chief executive, they are still on the payroll of the Department of Justice and with the Secretary for Justice at the helm. This is very interesting, right? So it exists in parallel, right?
So they're both Beijing's, but also Hong Kong's. Is that what you mean by parallel in that sense?
Well, it's parallel because you have a police department, a Department of Justice, and a judiciary that continue to handle and deal with ordinary criminal cases. But once you are put into the national security system, then you have special section in the police department, special section in the Department of Justice, and special, that is your question, right? Specially designated judges to hear the case. So that's why I'm saying that this NSL, National Security Law System, is a separate source of law and is running parallel to what has existed in Hong Kong that we know of, you see. Now, well, do you agree with me that this is running parallel?
Would you say it's parallel or even overpowering, would you say?
Well, there are special provisions in the national security laws to say that there could not be judicial review.
Yeah.
Right? In this sense, it is superior to the original system, right? Because the original system,
you can challenge
the police, the Department of Justice, right? They would operate in a normal way, and the way that they act or not act in situations can be judicially reviewed. But in this particular case, in the national security law, it is expressly provided in the law itself that the national security law's decisions would not be subjected to judicial review.
Right. And so far we have several people being charged with the national security law, including Jimmy Lai, the media tycoon, boss of Apple Daily, which is a very pro-democratic newspaper in Hong Kong. But none of those have actually finished all the court procedures, so we don't know what the outcome might be. But speaking of Jimmy Lai, so there's this mainland legal scholar writing in a pro-Beijing newspaper saying that he should actually be sent to mainland for trial to showcase the power of the Hong Kong version of the national security law. What do you have to say about that?
Well, this is no joke, you see. If Hong Kong people can be sent to be mainland to the mainland to be dealt with, and according to Article 55 of the national security laws, uh, whoever is sent to into the mainland to be dealt with under Article 55 would be at the mercy of the Supreme People's Procuratorate and also the financial center.
Sorry, give me a second. It seems that we have gone for a minute.
I think we are back.
Yep, so we are. We're gone for a minute. Let's see. Yep, there we go. Apologies for the technical issues, but we are back again. We might need to just repeat a little bit. So, like you said, how would how do you respond to this whole Jimmy Lai should be sent to mainland thing?
Well, the suggestion that anybody from Hong Kong should be sent to the mainland to be dealt with per Article 55 of the national security laws is no joke.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that person who made the suggestion knows this. You see, when people are sent to the mainland per Article 55, the article provides that that person sent would be at the mercy of the Supreme People's Procuratorate and also the Supreme People's Court. And Hong Kong authorities would be sealed off from even following what is going to happen to this person. Now, if this is a haunt that would be practiced in Hong Kong, I just ask the question, how could people who have been dealing with Hong Kong and who have trusted Hong Kong's system continue to trust and have confidence in our system, right? And if that trust and confidence are gone, then Hong Kong can no longer remain an international financial center because the rule of law no longer protects investors, investments, and generally people here.
But so the scholar actually in his article said that the provision in the Article 55, like you said, that was his basis of his claim that Jimmy Lai could be sent to the mainland because he has been calling for sanctions from the U.S., from other countries, and we do have some officials being sanctioned by U.S. So he argued that this is a legit concern. It's a legit a national security threat, and that's why we should have Jimmy Lai being handled in the mainland. You laugh.
Well, I said what I said. All right. The National People's Congress, by definition and theory, is omnipotent. it is more powerful than God. So, of course, anything goes. But it is really the consequences, whether the Chinese Communist Party and the Hong Kong SAR government are prepared to take the consequences. That's all what I'm saying.
To losing the status
Almond?
of right. And do you think that I mean, this is exactly why Hong Kong people protested at the very beginning, is that they don't want people to be sent to China, right? So would you say that some people said that, well, this is the beginning of one country, one system? What do you think about that?
The beginning, I think we are already in one country, one system. All right. If you are talking about uh, whether our original legal system is being sustained and preserved, uh, I really think, given the NSL, it is really very, very difficult to argue that there has not been any deterioration of the rule of law in Hong Kong. That's why you may be aware that there already are voices from the UK, uh, of course, who has been sending top judges to sit in our Court of Final Appeal as non-permanent judges, hearing cases together with our permanent judges. I think the Foreign Secretary already said in Parliament, I think about 3 weeks ago, that he would seriously consider advising the administration that it should the machine doesn't want to listen to me.
That's not true. Have that issue on for some reason.
Came back already?
Yep, we should be back.
Where do you want to pick up?
Yeah, so you were talking about likening the judges as canaries because when they sense a danger, then we should know that we're also in a very dangerous position.
Yeah. So that's why if the Foreign Secretary, I mean the UK Foreign Secretary's comments in the House of Commons could be taken to mean anything, it must mean that it is a warning that if the Hong Kong SAR government is not doing right things to restore the confidence of UK judges and government, that our legal system is still autonomous, is still independent, then they would not want to send their judges here to cover up, if you like, this deterioration, and they would not want to have anything to do with a legal system that is not honoring the principles and jurisprudence well respected and at the center of a common law system.
So those are just signs, right? And I guess one more question is that we have more and more activists, pro-democracy activists, politicians, former politicians leaving Hong Kong, fleeing Hong Kong actually, to go to different countries. We have, Natl in the UK, and then we have other activists in Germany, in the US. Do you think they are at risk of, violating the NSL, the national security law, even they're overseas? I mean, as they all promised to.
They're not at risk. They are wanted already. All right, Almond? They are wanted as fugitives from justice under the NSL. I think I'm right in saying that, right? Definitely, Ted Hui and Nathan Law are two persons on the want list of the Hong Kong police. Yeah.
Because they have, escaped.
Well, you asked the commissioner. The commissioner actually went public to say that they are wanted. Yeah.
So there's very slim chance that they'll be ever coming back to Hong Kong. But do you think that they would, being threatened somewhere, even in the UK, personal safety wise, do you think that they would?
Well, if you read the Ted Hui's Facebook or Nathan Law's Twitters, so far there has not been any suggestion.
Yeah, it seems fine so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess would you yourself leave Hong Kong?
Well, I have no plan to do so.
And are you worried about your own safety in Hong Kong then? I mean, under.
If I'm not worried, I would be naive.
Right.
Amen.
And
well, we try our best to not to not get into trouble with NSL, right? And I think
it is
vague
right now, isn't it?
Of course, it is vague. Well, it is meant to be vague.
Right.
It is meant to be equivocal, right? So that it can be a tool used by a regime that practices rule by law, using law as an instrument, as a tool to overpower and control the people. So I can only say that those who are in the democratic camp must tread carefully, and there is really no point in playing ourselves into the hands of the Carrie Lam's regime or the CCP passed NSL law. You see, right?
I mean, we do see politicians like Dennis Kwok from your party and Tanya also saying that they're gonna just leave politics all behind them. Do you think that sends a message to Hong Kong people that the pro-democracy camp is also kind of giving up, or?
Well, I think this is a defining moment for Hong Kong. Such moments have their parallels in history, both in the West and in the East. So it is not really a question of right or wrong in making a decision one way or the other at this defining moment. Every person will have some subjective factors to consider, and there would be objectively circumstances that apply to different people So that's all I can say. But I think there's already a trend in Hong Kong that the uh, people with like beliefs and who would want to see freedoms being protected, human rights being sustained, and the rule of law continues to protect us in Hong Kong. We just get together at street side cafes, at bookstores, just like people going to church on Sundays, right? That's how we keep the spirit uh, on. We would help each other to live through this dark hours which we are going into. But well, as I said just now, there are parallels in the history of mankind, both in the East and the West. So, well, we are just into such a darkness. That's all.
Well, hopefully this darkness will be no longer than ours, but that's not very likely.
Not up to us.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Alan,
My
for
pleasure.
giving all this legal analysis. And for those our audience, thank you so much for joining. Of course, this week, just a wrap for you guys, we talk about the legal analysis of the national security law, and we go into the nitty-gritty details of the law itself and why this is such a controversial piece of law in Hong Kong, and so many people are so repulsive to this law. So those who didn't watch us live, make sure you watch the stream again and leave us any questions or comments. I'll try to of course, I